And so how that is all going to interact and how we still create market opportunities for those people is a challenge. So we look forward to continuing the discussion. We will have many more, I am sure, but we're confident about the path that we're on. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. And last but not least, we have the pesticide regulation with Mr. Cuevas.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jesse Cuevas, Director of Legislation and Policy for the Department of Pesticide Regulation. DPR has a small but important role in the implementation of medical marijuana. Marijuana can be ingested, it can be smoked, they even make cream, so dermally it can be applied. There's many different ways that consumers can intake medical marijuana products. These products may or may not contain pesticides, which may or may not be harmful for consumption. DPR will be assisting the Department of Public Health to determine what safe levels of pesticide residues in marijuana are safe. To fulfill our role, we have asked for 3 positions and an appropriation of $700,000 from the DPR fund. There are 3 specific tasks that we will use these funds or positions for. DPR is asking to hire 2 expert toxicologists to review and analyze chemical data and studies in order to help determine what pesticide levels in medical marijuana products are safe for consumption. DPR will also enter into contracts with research entities to help analyze current cannabis cultivation and cultural practices and treatments, including pesticide use. This data will aid in protecting consumers and workers of medical marijuana. Finally, due to federal law, there are currently no pesticides specifically registered for marijuana, but the U.S. EPA has recently signaled that it may allow a company or a grower group to add marijuana use to an existing pesticide. This process is known as a Special Local Needs Registration, or a 24C. DPR anticipates that companies will ask for their products to be registered specifically for marijuana in California. Thus, DPR is asking for an environmental scientist to review and process submissions and handle the additional workload from the anticipated requests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no questions, we'll have ask if there's members of the public who'd like to be heard or address the committee. If there are, please step forward. I think we're going to use the microphone over here. Yes. Well, I think so. Needs just a little attending to.
Thank you, Chairman Bloom and members of the committee. My name is Taylor Glass here on behalf of CalTrout. CalTrout worked closely with Assemblymember Wood on his legislation, AB 243, especially with respect to the environmental protection pieces relative to illegal diversions and ensuring adequate in-stream flows for fish habitat. And we are happy to see that the budget proposal is consistent with that legislation, and we support the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I need to head off to Appropriations Committee to cast a vote, so I'm going to ask Mr. Williams to step in my absence.
We will not take a vote, and we will go on to the next item because there's only 2 of us sitting here. Like Cal EPA to come up and present. Please start with cybersecurity workload.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams and Mr. Patterson. Eric Jarvis, Cal EPA. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. With me today, I also have our agency Chief Information Officer, Sergio Gutierrez, should you have any detailed questions that I'm unable to answer. As the agenda indicates, Cal EPA is requesting 4 positions in funding for increased workload associated with securing Cal EPA's information technology assets. The agenda lays out the proposal nicely, and we thank staff for the approval recommendation. So in that vein, and in the interest of time, I'll be very brief. I'd like to frame the discussion quickly about how Cal EPA and its 6 boards, departments, and offices are integrated. As you may know, we all share common office space at our headquarters building. This shared space has enabled the agency to have a very effective communication model across all lines of business. This model provides for improved environmental policy, oversight, and enforcement. This should and does affect all facets of information technology. The BDOs, we call them BDOs, boards, departments, and offices. I apologize for the acronym. The BDOs share common networks, servers, and applications. This shared IT service model allows Cal EPA to make better use of electronic information in order to provide improved services to all employees, constituents, and stakeholders. And as you can imagine, Cal EPA will continue to make investments in shared technology, but it'll be all for naught if we don't protect these investments and address any serious IT security risks. We need to ensure that our boards, departments, and offices have the necessary resources to adhere to state and federal IT security policies and laws. Secretary Rodriguez has made this a priority, and so through this BCP, Cal EPA requests these resources in order to comply with those policies and laws. But probably even more important, help manage and guide and protect all of our shared cyber technology hardware and software in our data center in our building. I understand there have been several hearings over the past few weeks addressing information technology and specifically where departments currently stand. I believe our BCP addresses this issue. I believe the legislature and the administration are clearly on the same page and can agree that cyber risk has now become top of mind for leaders in business and government. To that point, if you like stats and reports, I will offer you this. A 2015 report published by the World Economic Forum included this rather stark warning, and I'll quote, 90% of companies worldwide recognize they are insufficiently prepared to protect themselves against cyber attacks. The Center for Strategic and International Studies suggests cybercrime costs the global economy over $400 billion per year. That same center suggests in 2013 some 3,000 companies in the U.S. were at some point in time compromised. Their systems were compromised. Now, I know this sounds alarming, but as the threat continues to mount, we want to be proactive and not reactive. Understanding and managing cybersecurity has never been more important. We all know that in today's world, we can't do our jobs without websites, desktops, printers, smartphones, and by extension, social media. So reducing the risk of those tools being compromised and ensuring our IT infrastructure is secure is critical. It is an integral part of what we must do in order to be successful in ensuring that the boards, departments, and offices of Cal EPA are meaningful, well-defensible, and reasonable. The resources obtained in this BCP will help safeguard our infrastructure and allow us to organize ourselves so that we can respond to this increased threat by adopting strict cybersecurity measures. And again, in the interest of time, I'll close there, but I'm happy to address any questions you may have. And thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with the legislature and the Department of Technology Services. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? And comment from the public? Seeing none?
I'd move the staff recommendation, which is to approve as budgeted.
I'll second. Please call the roll.
Bloom, Bigelow, Gordon,
Aye.
Patterson, Williams.
Aye.
That's out.
Thank you very much.
Cal Recycle? Mr. Smithline?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Please begin your presentation.
Very well. Mr. Chair, members, committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I'd also, if I may, take the opportunity to thank the staff for their analysis and comments on our proposals this morning. The first proposal is the City-County Payment Program. City-County Payment Program is part of the beverage container recycling program in the state of California. This is one of California's most successful recycling programs. Californians consume an immense amount of single-use beverage containers in this state, and the beverage container recycling program ensures that each day 50 million of those containers are recycled. The City-County Payment Program itself is a $10.5 million program consisting of payments to approximately 540 cities and counties in the state, primarily for activities related to beverage container recycling and litter abatement. Examples of these types of activities would include beverage container recycling programs at high schools, bars and restaurants, businesses and government buildings, as well as education programs and highway litter abatement programs. This proposal is for one analyst position to increase programmatic oversight of, and fiduciary responsibility over the program, and this is in response to a California State Audit Report of 2014. The objective of the position is to increase financial accountability. So in addition to training and outreach, this position would conduct monitoring of expense reports that come in per the program participants. So I'll leave it there and ask if you have questions about this proposal.
Questions from the dais? We do have the LAO here because they do have detailed analysis and recommendations on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Members, Ashley Ames with the Analyst's Office. We do find that the proposal is a reasonable way to address the identified oversight issues that were mentioned. However, we do have more fundamental concerns regarding the effectiveness of the City-County Payment Program itself. First, we find that the program structure is problematic, and that's just because these payments are calculated based on the jurisdiction's population rather than a performance criteria. And therefore, it's unlikely that the program will result in the most cost-effective recycling or litter reduction activities. And so unlike other fund allocation methods, such as a competitive grant program, for example, ineffective programs are just as likely to be funded under this as the effective ones. And we also note that under the beverage container recycling program, there are competitive grants that are available to local governments for beverage container recycling and litter abatement activities. And secondly, we find that the program effectiveness is unclear because the program lacks outcome metrics that could indicate success of the program in terms of meeting the goals of the beverage container recycling program. And while we acknowledge that the department is seeking resources to improve the program oversight and accountability, these additional activities, as currently proposed, would not measure the program effectiveness. So based on those two findings, we recommend that the legislature eliminate the city-county payment program, just given the concerns with the structure and the lack of information on its effectiveness. And then we also note that eliminating this program would provide $10.5 million in savings to the beverage container recycling fund, which currently has a structural deficit estimated at about $75 million. So that'd be about 14% savings. With that, happy to take any questions that you have. Thanks.
Members, questions to the LAO? Mr. Gordon.
And I don't know whether you're best or Mr. Smithline, but elimination of this program, has anybody done any analysis of the impact of that on local government?
We haven't done a formal analysis of the impact on local government. Presumably, they would shift their activities to the other program, competitive grants, to do things that would align with that program, but the department might be able to speak to that as well.
We have not conducted that formal analysis. I will tell you that local governments are a key program participant in this program. And while we do think the city-county payment program could benefit from further reform, it is our opinion that that reform, given the key nature of local governments have in the program, that reform is conducted in broader reform in the beverage container program.
Have other mechanisms been looked at beyond competitive grants? Obviously, with competitive grants, there has been concern in the past that larger cities or more affluent cities get a leg up. Have you looked at something like just rewarding based on performance? Recycling is something we measure in performance. Has either the LAO or the department looked at it in that fashion?
This is a very complicated program. We have the city-county payment is one of many supplemental programs. As I mentioned, there are 540 cities and counties that participate in this program. So if we make it with specific metrics, it can quickly become an overwhelming workload in terms of the resources required to respond to that type of system. We have historically proposed alternatives to how the expenditures can be made in this program. One proposal the department has made is that we narrow the focus of allowable expenditures. That was something that we did recommend in the 14-15 BCP, along with, again, a suite of other reforms that we thought made sense as a package.
Other questions?
In the broader context, we're running a structural deficit in this program, and I know that there have been multiple attempts over the years to take a look at how to deal with that.
Yes.
What is your level of effort and involvement in looking at how we might reverse course on this?
Our level of effort and involvement is high. This is a critical program for us. In addition to just recycling those 50 million beverage containers a day, this program obviously is a major litter abatement program for the state, but also provides a significant feed stack for manufacturing facilities in the state of California, particularly glass manufacturing facilities and plastics manufacturing facilities take advantage of the very high quality feedstock that this program provides to them. So we're not only at risk of losing a convenient recycling opportunity for consumers, but we're at risk of losing a significant feedstock for our limited recycling infrastructure, manufacturing infrastructure that we have in the state of California. Without significant programmatic reform, we do believe that we will hit below our prudent reserve in fiscal year 17-18. That will force us to make cuts to critical payments in this program, payments that recyclers rely on to stay in business. We are required to do so per statute. We call those cuts proportional reductions. You'll hear us refer to them as proportional reductions. We have taken as many steps as we think we can, and we continue to take steps to minimize leakage within the program programmatically as well as with addressing fraud, and we have made great strides. But those efforts will not be sufficient without reform to avoid dipping below our prudent reserve in 17-18. This department has and continues to reach out to all the stakeholders that are involved and members of this legislature, and we are completely invested in working to reform this program. And if you want, I'd be happy to go deeper into some of the prime areas or key issues that I think are at issue now, or I can reserve it for questions.
I think what would be just helpful is knowing whether or not we can expect a proposal in this budget discussion this year. I mean, we don't expect you to have all the answers today, but it's a big deal, and whether the administration will be coming forth with a plan.
Understood.
In this legislative session.
Understood. I cannot speak to whether or not the governor will propose a measure in this budget. What I can tell you is that we have been and continue to be engaged with the stakeholders in multiple conversations, just an exceptional amount of effort going into ensuring that we are working on this issue, and we are committed to a path to reform, working with this body, this legislative body, as well as the stakeholders.
Mr. Gordon.
One final question. One of the yesterday I had the opportunity to have brochures from around the state in my office, and with the closure of a significant number of collection sites that were usually on supermarket or grocery store parking lots, it seems to be some crisis in certain areas relative to the convenience zone collection. Is there any immediate thought about how to address that? Some of these folks are going to start to get fined if they don't find some other way to collect the material. And I'm wondering what level of engagement is going on in that regard.
Again, the level of engagement is very high, both with the individual grocers as well as with their trade associations. The answer is there is nothing that we can do in the immediate term to address that. We are bound by the processes that are identified in statute. What we can do is work with local governments to try and find a way to support the opening of a recycling center and try and stay in communication with local governments as best as possible. This event has precipitated for two primary reasons. One is there has been a dramatic reduction in the value of recycled plastic in the marketplace. This is directly correlated to the price of oil. Oil dropped below $30 a gallon. It is the scenario, at least last month, I don't know if it's still this month, but I believe it to be true that grade A virgin resins are cheaper than recycled plastic in the marketplace right now. When that occurs, beverage container manufacturers and beverage manufacturers switch from recycled plastic to virgin plastic containers. And when that happens, the recycling centers cannot sell their wares, and they go out of business. When they go out of business, as recently has happened with 200 of those centers, that creates an obligation for the grocers, the beverage dealers in those locations, under the program. It's so significant, as a matter of fact, that due to the 200 closures that we've recently experienced, the department has sent notices to almost 1,400 beverage dealers that they now have an obligation under the program. So yes, it is an extreme situation, and all the more reason why we need to focus on programmatic reform.
Thanks, Mr. Williams. I see you're ready to continue on. The power just goes to his head. Thanks for filling in. If there's no additional questions, is there public comment?
Good morning. My name is Susan Collins from the Container Recycling Institute, and much of the reason that this item is being discussed is related to the structural deficit, which was recently reported as $79 million a year ongoing, but as recently as just a few months ago, it was reported as only $28 million a year ongoing. So there's been a significant change in CalRecycle's estimates. And my comments speak to several items on the need for more and better financial information. 2 years ago, this committee approved 5 new positions for CalRecycle in their auditing group to address a serious concern that millions of dollars in revenues were not being collected each year. CalRecycle's estimate of undercollection was around $20 million per year, and the Container Recycling Institute's estimate of undercollection of revenue for this program was more than $200 million a year. Now, while we may disagree on the amount of the undercollection, both CalRecycle and CRI agree that it's a very serious issue that needs to be addressed. But to my knowledge, only 2 of those 5 auditing positions have been filled. And we're 2 years into the BCP that allowed for those. To correct this situation, additional actions are needed. Number 1, the positions need to be filled. Number 2, the audits need to be completed. And number 3, the results should be reported publicly. I know from questions that I've asked in writing to CalRecycle that in 2014, a single audit yielded $6 million in payments to CalRecycle, and that other actions that they took in 2014 resulted in $11.7 million being collected. So it's a significant issue. With proper attention, it can yield additional revenues, and that all speaks to the issue that you're addressing today, which is, should we make program cuts? In addition to that, we need more timely quarterly reports. They need to be filled with clarity and transparency. They need to be accurate and complete. In this last quarterly report, it was issued in January. It was reporting on a quarter that had occurred 7 months prior. It was for the quarter that ended June of last year. Quarterly reports should be quarterly. There were only 2 of them released last year, not 4. clarity and transparency. There were significant changes to previous year's financial results that weren't highlighted and weren't explained in the quarterly report. And as a matter of fact, the additional expenditures that occurred in 2013-14 were so much that they may have eroded the statement that correction of fraud has led to reduced expenditures. Well, here we are more than 18 months later, and we find out that the expenditures in 2013-14 were, in redemption fee payouts, were $23 million more than had been previously reported, even as recently as a few months ago. So I could go on, and I won't. I have a long list of things that need to be corrected that are all documented very well because they're from CalRecycle's quarterly reports. But we really need to get this financial, the projections straightened out so that they don't waver from quarter to quarter, and so that we don't have these wild swings. We've seen swings of as much as $100 million in changes from one quarterly report to another. That really needs more attention, and it should be reported back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand you've met with budget staff, but I'd like to invite you to schedule a meeting with my office to talk about some of the issues that you've raised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Ralph Simone representing the California Nevada Beverage Association. As to the structural deficit, when I prepared for today's hearing and looked over your staff comments, I went back to my 2014 notes that some of you might recall, where the department had a BCP that reformed about every facet of this program. Interestingly, one of the things I found from those notes was the structural insolvency date was March of 2016. That's today. Now, the structural deficit, I understand, at least the equilibrium point, is out there at March 2018. So somehow we need to get our arms around this. I know Ms. Collins, in her comments before you, talked about this fluctuating quarterly deficit. When you look at this last report that pegs it around $78 million, there's one element in there that could have a $42 million difference, and that is a projected increase in PET recycling rates of about 7%. That's about $42 million. So there are fluctuations, and we need to wrap our arms around them. One other quick comment in terms of the CZ infrastructure that Mr. Gordon asked a question about. That is from a somewhat different problem, the collapse of commodity prices that Director Smithline addressed. Not only do you have a dramatic drop in PET scrap value, but you also have a drop in aluminum scrap value over the past 18 months, which I understand is about 28%. This has taken the profit centers away from those recycling centers, and I'm sure they will address that. So we sort of have a perfect storm here. On the one hand, the structural deficit issue. On the other hand, collapse of commodity prices. And we all know that those commodity prices spike and change over time. What we need to look for is an ongoing, sustainable solution to these problems. I want to compliment the department. They have held countless workshops, brought stakeholders together, provided a ton of data for us to sift through, and hopefully we can come to a common sense solution. I will tell you that amongst the stakeholders in various groups, and now reaching out from those groups of common stakeholders to others, there is discussion. One of the concepts that keeps coming up is something called a differential, where there will be a difference between the amount paid at the point of purchase and the amount returned at the point of redemption. Those are very ongoing, very preliminary, but it is something that may provide some form of solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Mike Robeson on behalf of the Glass Packaging Institute, the trade association representing glass container manufacturers in the state and the nation. I kind of want to just maybe align myself a little bit with the comments of Mr. Simone, but really with the comments of Ms. Collins, we've kind of had a convergence of events in the last 6 months where commodity prices affecting the recyclers, affecting the ability to stay in business at supermarkets, combined with the structural insolvency of the fund, are kind of creating a bit of a crisis, and we're concerned about that. And as a primary stakeholder in the program, we want to be part of a solution to this. But I do want to I want to caution not to necessarily rush to a solution. The comments that Ms. Collins makes indicate that while the fund the fund's insolvency is a real issue. I don't doubt that, but the timing of the timing of actual insolvency, the timing of when proportional reduction might be triggered, I mean that's questionable. And until you guys have a full grasp of the financial situation of the program and the fund, I just don't want. I don't want a rush. I don't want to see you guys to this perceived crisis to drive poor decision making. So I just want to and we're committed to be part of a solution, but I just don't want the solution to be a rushed solution. And that's. Thank you.
Thank you.